Yes, good evening to you, Voyo. A speech of optimism and hope by Cyril Ramaphosa. Let's try and find out how it's going to be implemented by the Minister in the Presidency for Planning and Implementation, Jeff Radebe. Your thoughts on the speech?
Fantastic. I think it's a beginning of a new era, a season of hope, where issues of implementation are on top of the agenda around key issues that affect South African people, the economy, the jobs, the skills that our people require, the fight against crime and corruption. I think the program is laid down for all of us there to ensure that we implement it.
Minister Radebe, though, we are great at putting plans down on paper. How are we going to put this into action, especially in a time when our finances are stretched the way they are?
As you remember what the President said, there are timelines, there are things that must happen in the next 3 months, others in the next 6 months, others must happen today and tomorrow. So we are geared towards turning around these matters in order to ensure that this better life that you spoke of what Mandela said in 1994, must become a reality.
All right, Minister Radebe, a brief interlude here by Chester Missing, South Africa's favorite political puppet.
Hi, thanks, Nicholas. How are you, Minister Radebe?
I'm very well, and how are you, Chester?
I'm very excited. The President's talking about initiating a youth employment scheme. Is he trying to find a way to get rid of Gigaba?
Not at all. As I understand it, the issue of youth unemployment is on the agenda of the day. As you know,
that's what I'm saying. He's trying to Gigaba.
60% of unemployment affects the majority of young people.
Well, didn't you think that was a bit rich? Ramaphosa said he's going to increase employment, and that's after he's just got another guy fired. That's disgusting, man.
Not at all. The young people, they are gearing for jobs, for skills, for education. That's what they need to get.
Is that why Ramaphosa took that geriatric Zuma's job? Because he's a youth.
He's very young at heart, but that decision was taken by the ANC.
All right, guys, we're going to throw to Lester Kivitt now. Lester Kivitt's got the Minister of Finance. Let's find out if he's going to be dotting the I's and crossing the T's on this plan with the money from South Africa's purse. Lester.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. I have Mmusi Maimane, the leader of the official opposition. Just judging from the reaction in the House and judging from what we're gauging on social media, a strong speech by the President. How do you challenge that on Monday's debate here in the House?
Yeah, I look forward to the debate. We welcome the speech, the call for everybody to work together. But if you look at the speech and its details, it came across as a speech of a lot more of the same. Some of the programs were in Mr. Zuma's administration. And furthermore, it announced a number of more summits. What South Africans are desperate for is decisive and immediate action to go from now forth. So when you look at sectors like education, it's one thing to say those are programs that have been there. South Africans want their schools and their townships to be improved now, and for the influence of unions to be taken out. What South Africans want is an announcement around tax and how you use tax to stimulate manufacturing. We could have got more bolder action today, and I had a lot more of the same stuff.
It seemed for a moment like an episode of The Apprentice. So many people got fired live on TV, it seems. Are you satisfied with that? The shrinking of ministries, ministers being put on notice?
Well, I look forward to all those announcements when we look at the cabinet reshuffle, because there are many other departments that need to be fired. And when you look at even areas like state-owned enterprises, it's going to be important that we restructure the whole of government. And so I really look forward to the reforms that will come through and making sure that actually the state works for the people of South Africa.
As a man, my last question, as a man who's so deeply entrenched in the administration of the previous president, do you think Malusi Gigaba should be the man to deliver the budget on Wednesday?
Far from. It was Malusi Gigaba who started state capture. He must be removed, and we must get a finance minister who will take us forward.
Thank you very much, Mmusi Maimane, the leader of the official opposition. I go across the parliamentary precinct for more reaction.
Well, we have here Bantu Holomisa, leader of the United Democratic Movement, been in Parliament for over 2 decades. Your thoughts on that maiden State of the Nation address by Cyril Ramaphosa?
I think we should appreciate what the intentions of the new president are. However, we must caution him. We have heard these promises before, and I hope that he has an administration which would support him and implement these ideas of his. And in particular, at a government level, that is administration as well as the cabinet. However, we appreciate that he wishes that people of South Africa should unite and make sure that we approach issues on a non-partisan approach. On that score, I'm sure he's going to get a lot of support from all political parties.
General, maybe tell us how you feel about his impassioned plea for corruption to be stamped out both in the public and the private sector. That here's a man with bags of political and corporate experience.
Yes, it's a good idea, but are the administrators willing to do that? Let's give him an opportunity to unpack that during the course of this year. But already we see that the police are beginning to flex their muscle, and we also commend him for saying he wants to deal with the NPA problems.
Last but not least, it's a very long list of wishes. Do you think that it's all possible in the next 12 months?
Not in the next 12 months. As I said, it will depend whether he has a willing administration. Currently, I don't think some of the ministers I looked across, they were sulky while they was talking.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that. General Bantu Holomisa of the United Democratic Movement. Throwing back to studio, Voya Mvoko standing by.
Thanks very much, Nicholas Bauer and Lester Kivet will, of course, keep on bringing us the reaction from the various political parties that are represented here in Parliament. We're still going to hear from the EFF, from the ACDP, from COPE, and all those other political parties that are represented here in Parliament. For now, though, let me turn to Stembile Mbeta, who has been listening with me here in studio. Stembile, just overall, your impressions of his maiden speech?
Well, I think it started off a little dull. It was, and certainly the first half of it or so was really targeted and geared towards the economic community, particularly the international economic community. So there were a lot of the kinds of markers and cues that he really would want the investors and the investor community to pick up on. So really acknowledging the problems around the management of the economy and stating his commitment towards building business confidence and setting the path, the country on a new growth path. I think what was then really interesting was where he got to the point a bit later in his speech, speaking about the real scandals that we've been seeing in the last few years.
Which we are going to get into in detail. For now, though, let's go to Lester Kivet, who has the EFF leader, Julius Malema.
Thank you very much, Vuyo. I have Julius Malema here of the EFF. Earlier this week, you said I must use the scientific method and not use emotion. What did Cyril Ramaphosa do here tonight? Does he have science? Does he have facts behind his name? Or is he just using the moment and looking forward to his future as President of the Republic?
There is no plan. The man told us what we wanted to hear. But he has got no plan on how he's going to go about it. He has announced a lot of commissions. He has announced a lot of seminars. That is the only thing that came out of his mouth. Once a man says that, you must know that he doesn't know what he wants to do. He's hoping those seminars and commissions will come up with something coherent. We welcome the expropriation of land without compensation. We also welcome the reducing of cabinet. We have always complained that the South African cabinet is too big and it doesn't add value in South Africa. That we welcome. We also welcome the commitment to allow law enforcement agencies to continue doing their work without any interference. He must arrest his own colleagues because they are corrupt, and most of them are not going to be very happy with him once he starts moving closer to them. We gave Ramaphosa a chance today. That's why at the beginning, when he was uneasy, I said to him, relax, brother, focus, read your speech, so that he doesn't complain and say, I was never given a chance. We allowed him to announce his plans so that we can hold him accountable based on his plans. We want peace in this parliament. We are people of peace. The only problem we had was with the delinquent. Now let the superior logic prevail. Ramaphosa has spoken. We'll respond to him on Monday on clear, concrete plans of what he needs to do.
so many people seems like they're losing their jobs, or this, particularly ministers, particularly heads of delinquent so-called SOEs. Your thoughts on that?
Well, we are very happy. We welcome that. He must implement that without fear. He must not just say it. We want him to implement that and ensure that these people are sent to the streets where they belong. Anyone who's incompetent, anyone who's inefficient, anyone who's corrupt doesn't qualify to occupy a strategic position in our government. Let's hope Ramaphosa did not read social media before the speech here and respond to the social media through the speech. Let's hope that is a conviction he carries, and we'll see that through action. It's now February. We'll be back here next year, February, when he delivers his last speech as a president of South Africa. We're going to hold him accountable. So the first move he needs to do, if he really means business, he needs to fire Minister of Finance. We cannot have Malusi Gigaba, the deputy delinquent, delivering a budget which must inspire hope and confidence to the investors.
You said that, let me start firstly, 26.7% unemployment rate. A lot of the plans that the president announced here are plans that former President Jacob Zuma had already announced. Is that enough? Do you want more?
No, there are no plans. He says the unemployment is at 26%. We are going to convene a job summit. You can't call that a plan scientifically. If we are to talk science again now, it's not a plan. He says he's going to call a job summit to devise means on how they can create jobs. The president does not have a plan. But let's give him a benefit of doubt. He's new in office. He was sworn in yesterday. He tried his level best. Let's give him chance. We gave him chances. The EFF will hold him accountable based on his commitments.
I'm sure the president's looking forward to your contribution during the debate on Monday. That's EFF leader Julius Malema. Across the precinct, more reaction.
Thank you very much, Lester. We've got Dr. Peter Groenewald, the leader of the Freedom Front Plus. Let me start maybe with the most pertinent question to your constituency. Your thoughts on the new president's speech trying to give expression to the 54th Elective Conference ANC's decision on land expropriation without compensation. It said it's going to be done without affecting food security and the economy. Your thoughts?
Well, firstly, we say that mere accepting the principle of land expropriation without compensation in itself is negative for the economy as well as food security. He said that he will gather with stakeholders to discuss the matter, but the principle in itself is negative, and we are opposed to that. And I can say that we will do from the Freedom Front side everything that we can to try to stop that expropriation without compensation. We know that they have to change the constitution and they need a 2/3 majority, but we will use every step to try to stop that.
All right, one last question. Overall thoughts on Ramaphosa's speech, maiden speech as president, his State of the Nation?
Overall, it is positive, but as they say, the proof lies in the eating of the pudding. What he actually did, he focused on the National Development Plan, and what is positive is that he said he's going to have less government departments. That in effect means that he's going to have a smaller cabinet. Now we will have to see when he appoints his cabinet whether they're going to have less ministers and deputy ministers. So the proof lies in the eating of the pudding. Yes, on corruption he came over very strongly, which is also positive. But they must ensure that it is not only civil servants that are prosecuted, they must also ensure that the political heads that gave the instructions for that must join them as far as the prosecution is concerned.
All right, a quick word from our favorite political puppet, Chester Missing. What do you have to say to Dr. Peter Groenewald?
Dr. Groenewald, I've got a very important question for your constituency. Now that President Zuma's gone and Alistair Coetzee has been fired, who are white people complaining about now at Prize?
don't worry, they will get someone who they can complain about. It doesn't matter who the trainer of the Springboks are. If they don't win, they will be criticised.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We've got Trevor Manuel standing by with Lester Kiver. We'll be back in the other side of the parliamentary precinct in a second.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. Trevor Manuel, former Minister of Finance. You, even in the past, have had to put money behind the talk of presidents. Just how difficult is it going to be for whoever delivers the budget speech on Thursday to put the money where the mouth is?
Look, there's a big problem, and I think we read that in the State of the Nation, in the medium-term budget policy statement in October. There's a huge problem on the revenue side, and this evening I think the President has said that there will be changes at SARS. He will establish a commission to deal with it. But there have also been very huge problems on the expenditure side. Part of that, of course, is attributable to corruption, both within government and within the state-owned enterprises. The President has spoken to what needs to be done. I don't think it's going to be resolved by Wednesday, the 21st, but I think the signal is abundantly clear. And so if one draws on the medium-term budget policy statement, there have been some issues that have come into play since then, including the announcements of the 16th of December on higher education. And I think that we still have an unresolved matter in respect of the public sector wage negotiations. But notwithstanding that, I think we can look to the bridge of the ship and say there is a captain who is in control of the ship, and it's all hands on deck.
It sounded like there was plenty of pandering to business, plenty of co-opting of CEOs. Is the fight not going to be with the opposition in Parliament, but the fight is going to be between Cyril Ramaphosa and leaders of the Tripartite Alliance in the ANC?
I don't believe that is so. I think that part of the messaging that emerges from this evening's speech is that you don't have a binary choice between the private and the public sector. We're all in this together as South Africans. We must solve problems together and make a commitment in the interest of our people together. And that, I think, will be demonstrated by the interactions. Some of them have been there, some of them have been attempted. The COE initiative, which was born after the untimely dismissal of former Minister Nhlanhla Nene, had seen CEOs come together with government, but now I think it can be done with more intensity and more participation.
My final question, church on Sunday, jogging partner on Thursday, seated in the presidential box today. You've been seen a lot with Cyril Ramaphosa this week. Are you making a return to government?
You know, we worked so well together in the National Planning Commission, in the Release Mandela campaign, in the reception committee for Mandela, and it's an old friendship, and that's the most important thing.
They say no comment is a comment. That's former Triance Minister Trevor Manuel. Back across to my colleague for more reacts.
Thanks very much for that, Lester. We've got a full house here. We'll start with ACDP President Reverend Kenneth Meshwe. Your thoughts, Reverend, on that maiden speech by Cyril Ramaphosa as President?
It was an excellent speech. He hit the right notes and pressed the correct buttons. He said things that South Africans wanted to hear. As we are all concerned about corruption, what he said about corruption, how he's going to tackle corruption, has given us hope that all the ministers, cabinet ministers to start with, who are involved in criminality, who are implicated in corruption, they are going to be arrested. And once this starts happening, the credibility of South Africa in the international community is going to be restored.
Let me ask you very quickly, do you think that he has the moral authority to do something like that? Is Cyril Ramaphosa, you being a spiritual man, up to the task?
I grew up with him. When we were in university, we were together. He was my leader, and he had excellent moral integrity, and he was an ethical leader, and he insisted on those who worked with him and followed him to be ethical. So if he deviates for that, I'll be on his case. Okay. Because he used to give me pressure, he used to give my friends pressure, I'll be on his case. I'm expecting his ethical conduct to surface so that he's also surrounded with ethical people, and so that the youth out there, young people out there, can realize South Africa needs ethical leaders in order to be a winning nation.
Thank you very much, ACDP President Reverend Kenneth Mithra. I do appreciate your time. I'm going to bring in Eskom Chairperson here, Jabu Mabuza. First thoughts there. Some great promises on the economy. Maybe let's start with this economic advisory panel that President Cyril Ramaphosa has promised. Your thoughts?
I think it is to be welcomed. There are a lot of South African business people that want to contribute. We have demonstrated our desire to be seized and contribute to finding solutions through the CEO initiative. The work we've done on the Yes campaign, the things we've done on the SMME fund, and indeed the willingness of business to lift their hands and said, send for me, do send us into these boards to try and clean up the governance, to try and ensure that they are properly run, and we try and give ethical leadership.
He did make a big point of cleaning up the SOEs and removing all parts of the SOEs that are a drag onto the fiscus. Take the people at home that are sitting in informal settlements, people living in Lusikisiki, people living in Kumashu, people living in Khayelitsha. How does it find expression with a person that doesn't have a job and lives in poverty?
Look, if these SOEs are properly run, not only will they be able to offer good service, they will offer efficient and cost-affordable services. They will also be powering industry to create jobs. If you take Eskom, for instance, if Eskom continues to be run properly and provides electricity in the cost-effective way, a reliable electricity, as we head to clean energy, we should be able to diversify into many other industries and power the economy that can employ a lot of people.
A quick word from our favorite political puppet, Chester Missing.
So, Jabu Mabuza, is it awkward you're now the second most powerful Mabuza in the country?
I don't choose family.
How's Telkom going?
Well, Telkom is doing very well. Telkom is in capable hands, capable board, good management, good business plan.
Yeah, but the thing is, didn't you see how we were getting rid of Zuma? Felt like we were getting a Telkom line. Today, tomorrow, next week, maybe never.
Chester, you do get your line, and if you just pay for your service.
All right, we're going to leave that for a second. I've got Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi to join us. He's the president of the IFP. Yabonga Kakuli, Prince Mangosuthu. Lovely to have you on ENCA this evening. Your thoughts on Cyril Ramaphosa's maiden speech, his State of the Nation address?
I think he really summed up his message at the beginning when he said it was a year of change. This was a year of renewal, and this was a year of, change and hope.
Do you think that
change, renewal, and hope? And I think that I've had many speeches, SONA speeches, which were very good, erudite, etc. But even his style of delivering it, of unpacking exactly what the problem is, and not leaving it dead, and not summarizing what he's going to do, but actually spell it out, unpack what needs to be done. But he was very cute, in fact, in turning around to throw the challenge at all of us, regardless of political affiliation. When he said, this challenge is all of us as South Africans, because our country is in dire straits. That we're all challenged by the state in which our country is.
Your thoughts, though, as an opposition party about how, A, you're going to work with this new government of Cyril Ramaphosa and also ensure that a lot of these promises are kept? Because we do have a great tradition in South Africa of making great plans, making great promises, but the implementation falls far short.
No, of course, I'm excited about the speech, but at the same time, I asked the question, since we're such a big debt already, apart from anything, how we're going to implement it? That is now quite apart from the fact that many promises have been made, which is true, as you say, that many promises it's easy to make promises. But I believe that he means what he's saying. But my worry is in the situation in which the country is, I worry about how is this going to be implemented? Where is the money? Because we've been going deeper and deeper into debt.
All right, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi of the IFP, Ngiyabonga kakhulu futhi. We'll go back to Lester Kivitt on the other side of the parliamentary precinct for more reaction.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. Lutando Mina of the PAC. It seems as if particularly the ANC and political parties here really lapping up what Cyril Ramaphosa had to say. But you are supposed to keep oversight and be keeping accountable. How exactly are particularly smaller parties going to do that?
we will obviously make sure that he accounts to Parliament, and then he comes and, and then tell us about the promises that he has made here. But the speech, I must say, it was very good, and you could say that it's coming from the bottom of his heart. But the problem that we have is whether he will be able to walk the talk, or, more especially working under a rot system and a corrupt system. And as you know, that is surrounded by all these corrupt, cabinet ministers and MPs. But the issue of education, for us, we don't believe that there should be a segregation, because it's talking about first-year tertiary education for those parents that are earning 350 or less. And then we don't believe that it should be from primary. And then the issue of land, obviously, he did not address it very well, because he's just talking about the distribution of land, revitalizing agricultural sector and so forth. But our people, when it comes to unemployment, are not looking only for employment as such. They just want to be entrepreneurs. They want to own their own businesses. But I was very happy with him, and then I'm also very worried about those that are surrounding him, more especially if he will really deal with the corruption the way he has articulated it here today.
Lieutenant Media of the PAC, thank you very much. Now, Minister Rob Davies, many people say what we're hearing here, particularly when it comes to the economy, the jobs, is same old that we've heard from former President Jacob Zuma, just with a bit more emotion. Your analysis of it, are you ready, if still in Cabinet or a member, and still a member of the National Assembly, to put action behind this policy?
Well, I think that what really is different is that the President announced that we've turned a corner in terms of dealing with a number of the issues which have been bedeviling all our efforts to try to get this economy moving on a higher and more inclusive growth path. So, the issues of corruption and state capture and all of that have really impacted very, very detrimentally on the efforts that we've been trying to make over the years. So I think that, first of all, we've turned a corner on that respect. Secondly, that there's a mood of optimism among investors. I've seen that palpably myself, based on action. The action that was taken around Eskom ahead of going to Davos was very significant in terms of improving the atmosphere and attitude of investors towards South Africa. And this morning I was at the Isuzu launch in Port Elizabeth, and again I saw among investors from Japan, including the CEO of Isuzu company, optimism and a willingness to expand the presence in South Africa and address some of our challenges about deepening manufacturing. So I think that while some of the things that the President was talking about are things that we've been trying to do, deploy incentives, deploy other policy tools, deploy localization, the fact is that I think that we're going to go into a period now where whoever's in charge of making those decisions will actually have a much more conducive environment to make those policy tools more effective. So we won't have a situation, hopefully, where we have seen in the past that decisions about designations of products for local manufacturing have not been respected, and where some of these tenders have materialized. The Parliamentary Committee has been looking at this. Some of these have gone to imported products rather than locally manufactured products, and that has weakened our efforts to promote industrialization. So hopefully now those policy tools will become much more effective, and that we can advance with the work that needs to be done to really change the character of this growth path, to industrialize our country, reindustrialize our country, grapple with the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution, which I think are going to be really, really profound. There'll be opportunities, but also challenges. So I think that this was actually one of the most inspiring SONAs that have been given at any time since 1994. And I think that what the President has done is ignited a mood in the country and a mood towards this country that doesn't solve our problems but creates a more conducive environment for us to address some of the challenges that we've been talking about for a while now.
I know you're a teetotaler, but if one were to play a drinking game and take a shot every time the President said the word summit, by halfway through the speech you'd be under the table. Do we need more summits, or do we need to just get shoulder to the wheel and get to work?
Well, you know, in the work that was done by my colleague Ibrahim Patel in the new growth path, what was envisaged there was a series of social compacts involving all the players around a number of issues. And I think that the big one was not really, didn't really materialize. And so, you know, getting all players together, working inclusively, that's also our lesson. And in the, for example, the work we're doing on the new motor program, we've worked with a lot of rigor, but also with a lot of participation by the unions, by the automotive manufacturers, by the component manufacturers, and so on. That's the way we need to work, is to work together with our stakeholders. That's what we think, where we've done that in our industrial policy, it's been successful.
Rob Davis, thank you very much, Minister of Trade and Industries. Back to my colleague, Nicholas Bauer, for more reaction.
Thanks very much, Lester. We've got two interviews lined up here. The South African Local Government Association Chair, Parks Taaf, former Johannesburg Mayor. What's your thoughts on local government finding expression in Cyril Ramaphosa's maiden speech as President of the country?
I think a very important message by the President was to say that he's committed to working with provincial and local government to mobilize all of government in collective action towards attaining our objectives of fundamental socio-economic transformation. And I think that's an important message because it talks about collective action by all spheres of government.
But at the end of the day, though, we have a very large government system and we've got national, provincial and local government. How are we going to get them all working together and singing off the same hymn sheet at the end of the day?
I think from the messages that the President sent out today, he sent out what the agenda is, what needs to be done with regards to the agenda, and how he's going to organize everybody in collective action. And I think that's important because we talk about cooperative governance, but cooperative governance ultimately is about mobilizing everybody and organizing it into a system of cohesive action that is able to produce results. And the President set out clear and specific results that he would want to achieve and clear and specific actions that need to be undertaken. And I think he has mobilized all of us to ensure that we're able to undertake the task. Most important, not just to act as government, but to also act in concert with civil society, with business, with all South Africans in a social compact that seeks to create a fundamentally different South Africa and break us out of the cycles of poverty, unemployment, inequality, low growth, negative credit ratings. So it's really set an agenda that's there for all of us to undertake our respective responsibilities.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Former Johannesburg Mayor and South African Local Government Chairperson, Parks Taaf. We've got our next guest here, George Sibulela of the Black Business Council. Let me start off by asking this thoughts of reindustrialization. It's not the first time that we've heard it. Essentially, a lot of people saying that it's what President Jacob Zuma said and Cyril Ramaphosa just saying it with a little bit more oomph. What are your thoughts about reindustrializing the South African economy and also the promise by Cyril Ramaphosa that it's going to be done with a transformation imperative?
I think let's acknowledge that South Africa, particularly on the industry's point of view, the manufacturing has gone so low. And the reason is very simple, that locally we have been dependent on importing goods rather than manufacturing goods. What we heard today from Cyril Ramaphosa is much more practical implementation to say, what are we going to do to make sure that we improve our manufacturing capacity? We rely not on the imports. We are going to make sure that we increase the foreign direct investment. Those that are going to, particularly the textiles and other manufacturing entities, we will make sure that we utilize the current incentives that are available in DTI to make sure that we sell this opportunity as South Africa as a best investment destination. And the second thing is, if you remember that there are special economic zones that have been established, let's accelerate and show the world that we do have special economic zones where industries can be able to be set up. And I thought it's a brilliant suggestion.
And then the thoughts that all sectors of South African society should work together, business, labor and government. There is a thought, though, that business at the end of the day is still largely white dominated. How are you as the Black Business Council going to ensure that the bigger captains of industry, not due to the fact that they are based on skill, but based on time in the economy, are going to be able to work hand in hand with black businesses that are still growing for the betterment of the entire country's economy?
If you listen carefully from the president, he said there are special platforms that must be utilized very effectively. One of them, as you know, is NEDLAC. The second one, he says he will establish a very progressive and productive presidential advisory group, in which case all the social parties and business government will be represented. So we believe if he's going to lead that platform and effectively, so I think there's going to be a collaboration. Today he talks about collaboration.
Well, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Congratulations to the President for delivering such a thought-provoking, wonderful speech. But of course, as we say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We have a duty as the opposition to ensure that we do oversight. But we're happy with the issue of ensuring that our youth get education skills, prepare them for the jobs, and also tackling the issue of unemployment. But we want to see the practicum of it. The issue of state capture and corruption has ravaged this country, and we want to see to it that there is monitoring and evaluation to ensure that we rid this country of corruption and state capture from the SOEs, from the public sector, from the private sector. And he has said it. We want to see it, and there should be time frames on it. The issue of land is very pertinent, that our people are able to plow, able to use agriculture as their medium of development. We want to see that that is followed up. The issue of quality basic and also higher education that is free. We want to see the practicality of it. We want to see that our children will be funded to get education. And of course, we need some industrialists, black industrialists. We need to see entrepreneurs. We want to see that some startups giving that funding to deal with poverty and also unemployment in this country, which is ravaging our country. These are the issues that we'll monitor as the NFP. He spoke to all the masses and all the people of South Africa, but we'll ensure that he's accountable. We do our oversight that these things are done. Not alone, but with all of us in the country. We want to see it happening.
Prof. Kobisa of the NFP, thank you very much. Monsieur Lekota of the Congress of the People, I want to start yesterday. You raised an objection to the nomination of Cyril Ramaphosa as President of the Republic. I want to know why.
This thing was not aimed at him as an individual. It has to do with the whole House, the whole of the National Assembly, that was found to have failed to uphold its oaths of office. And he's one of the House.
So are you.
So am I. The issue about this is that we wanted to get Zuma out because he had broken his oath of office. But now the same court that found him to have done so found us as well. How can we now be better than him? Why don't we say, okay, we have had to drive Zuma out, but we are in the same position because we also did not uphold our oath of office. Therefore, what needs to happen is that we must dissolve this and go. South Africa has got 56 million people. Call another election, elect other men and women who will respect and who will uphold their oath of office.
But even if there is a snappy election now, would you still support the nomination of Cyril Ramaphosa from the ANC as President of the Republic?
No, but he and I and all of the others, we broke our oath of office according to the Constitutional Court. How can we now come again now and say we want to take the same oath again? It's never done like that. If it is found that you have broken your oath of office, then that's it.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Lekota of the Congress of the People. the man whose moment is on Wednesday, Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba. Firstly, Minister, plenty of promises there, especially when it comes to the question of higher education, but you also have a 50 billion rand hole to fill first. Any insight on what you're going to do on Wednesday?
Look, it's difficult to talk about what's going to be in the budget. I certainly can't do that. I think what one can say is that the president has given us a clear directive as to what we need to do. He has said that the most important thing is to revitalize the economy. We need to get our economy going, place young people into the center of our economic endeavors. He also, interestingly, no less than 4 times, spoke about the partnership with the private sector, which underscores the importance of pulling our resources together and harnessing all our muscle in order to grow the economy. The most important task for us going forward is job creation and inclusive growth. And I think what the budget will have to try and do is to outline some of the aspects of doing that, and we will base ourselves on the narrative that the president has provided today as the framework of what we need to do going forward.
I've heard plenty of private sector involvement, CEO summit, very little on Labour. It seems to me as if the battle is not going to be in the opposition benches here in Parliament, but between the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, and the leftist leading parts of the tripartite alliance, COSATU and the SACP. Is that correct?
No, not really. Remember that what we have been saying for the last few months is that business confidence has been low. Lowest since 2015, since 2009. And secondly, we've been saying that business in South Africa, because of the low confidence, are not investing as they should. As a result, we have about 700 billion rand that business could invest but are not investing because of low confidence. Now, the president was speaking to them to uplift the business confidence so that we can get those investments into the economy. There are various initiatives which are already being undertaken with Labour, including the Youth Employment Service, the National Minimum Wage, the programs we've been implementing together to improve the investment grade of the country, interacting with the ratings agencies. So there are very positive actions that are being undertaken with Labour. I don't think that there's going to be any negative sentiment by Labour to the speech that the president has outlined. The interventions the president spoke about of creating jobs, of ensuring that we build small businesses and revitalizing the mining and agricultural sector, creating 1 million jobs in the agricultural sector. All of those speak right into the hearts of the workers and the poor in our country. And so it was a balanced speech that spoke to all the constituencies, the youth, the women, people with disabilities, and every sector of our society.
Minister, before I wrap up, can you look into that camera and confirm to the people of South Africa Live that you'll be delivering the budget speech on Wednesday?
I serve at the pleasure of the president. It's the president who decides what's going to happen. On the 21st, there will be the budget speech delivered by the Minister of Finance. All I can say is, see you again somewhere.
I should have put money on that answer, that he serves at the pleasure of the president. Over to my colleague, Nicholas Bauer.
All right, well, we've got a chance to speak to the man that's running the party that Cyril Ramaphosa is in charge of. That's Ace Magashule, Secretary General of the ANC. Initial thoughts on that maiden speech by President Cyril Ramaphosa?
Optimism, renewal, hope to the hopeless, land back to our people, and discipline, the decorum of the house, building the nation in action, non-racialism, non-sexism, democracy, united, prosperous South Africa for all those who have not participated in the mainstream economy, and a free education, and focus on young people because of unemployment, poverty, and inequalities. marshalling all South Africans together, black and white, to build a non-racial society.
Do you think that it's realistic to implement, to be able to implement every single outcome of the 54th elective conference of the ANC? I understand land expropriation without compensation was there, education for the tertiary institutions was there, but realistically speaking, are you as a party going to be able to implement this in the short to medium term and keep everybody happy?
Well, that's what we are supposed to do. Resolutions of the party are supposed to be implemented without fail. Our work as Secretary General and the DSG is to focus and make sure that those who are deployed in government throughout South Africa, municipalities, provinces, districts, and national, implement the resolutions of the ANC without fail. We have to monitor on a daily basis whether these resolutions are implemented, and where there are difficulties and challenges, that's where we need to engage, because we are also engaged in society here. The intelligentsia, everybody must come back, and we must reunite and renew and make sure that we create peace and prosperity for all South Africans.
Also, a renewed promise to attack corruption with vigour in the public and the private sector. Your thoughts as ANC Secretary General, and secondly, as someone that's been implicated in a very big project that has seen people go to court already, the SONA dairy project. Are you worried at all you might be caught up in this brand new drive to stamp out corruption?
Well, I don't know how I'm implicated by virtue of being the Premier of the Free State, and the Department of Agriculture is involved here. That is a matter which the law agencies must focus on and deal with corruption. We support, and we have always supported the ANC. This is a resolution of conference. It's not the resolution of Ramaphosa. And we'll work hard and make sure that we bring back the dignity of all South Africans, and there shall be peace and stability.
So you yourself personally, as Premier of the Free State, as Secretary General of the ANC, you're not worried at all about being investigated for corruption, especially related to the SONA dairy project?
Well, I have nothing to say about it, and I've said investigate whatever you want to investigate, but don't create stories, don't create the hype for the country, and later on, after tarnishing our images, you come back and say, sorry, we apologize. We have said people are innocent until proven otherwise. That is the universal principle, and I think it must be respected.
All right, thank you very much for being a good sport. That's Ace Magashule, Secretary General of the ANC. We've got the Minister of Economic Development, Mr. Ibrahim Patel. If you wouldn't mind joining us, there we go. Thank you very much. That's Ace Magashule leaving with Pule Mabi. Economic Development Minister Patel, thank you very much for joining us. Your thoughts on a very long laundry list of promises in the economy for on the economy by a newly elected President Cyril Ramaphosa. Do you think it's all doable?
I think it's doable. I think it's important that the President not only said this is what we need to do, because remember there's an urgent need to deal with unemployment, bringing young people into the economy, upping our game on the level of growth and promoting transformation. Those are not promises the President makes. Those are responses by the President to the urgent needs of the society. But what the President put on the table was that we want to do this in partnership. We're going to do a job summit. Why? Because we want to bring business and labor together and say, let us do things together. There are things we can do. We can use the budget, we can use our regulatory authority and power. But we also need to bring in the enormous resources of the private sector and the cooperation and support of the trade union movement so that we can bring young people into the economy in larger numbers. And the President indicated that one of the other things we need to do is have a conference, a meeting, a summit with investors to show the compelling opportunities in the South African economy. I was in Davos in January, not very long ago. And as we outlined the opportunities in South Africa, and as the new mood that the country has been in began to register with investors, we had a number of them, those with plants and operations in South Africa, saying, how do we go about expanding our operations? And those who had been thinking about South Africa but postponed the decision are now ready to come in. So I think that what we have is a bold vision. It's going to require hard work, It's going to mean doing things differently, and in a sense that sets out our stall, our agenda of things that need to be done. It doesn't mean we're not achieving anything. There are things that we're achieving, but the sense of urgency that was injected tonight, the sense of working together, but also dealing with the issues of how the state operates, challenging and combating corruption. And there's some real steps that the South African public has been seeing over the last few weeks to deal with it. Corruption is not only a moral and ethical issue, important as that is. It also corrodes our capacity to grow the economy, to promote opportunities for young people, to build schools and clinics, to create jobs. We did some work that showed that if prices are increased by just 10% as a result of corruption, that already means 27 billion rand blow to the GDP and 76,000 jobs affected annually. So the anti-corruption action is really a part of a toolbox to really get this economy moving again. It's going to be hard. We're going to need every South African to help us.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that. I really do appreciate your time, Dr. Ibrahim Patel of the Economic Development Department. We're off to pay the rent. Back in Parliament in a moment.
I wanna be there when the people start to turn it around, when they triumph over poverty. I wanna be there when the people win the battle against AIDS. I wanna lend a hand. I wanna be there for the alcoholic. I wanna be there for the drug addict. I wanna be there for the victims of violence and abuse. I wanna lend a hand. Serve